Hey folks, welcome to Soaring Prophets. I'm Patrick, as always, my co-host James, and a special guest, Mr. Ken Porter. And today we're coming to you on Saturday, a little bit off of our normal Thursday night live program schedule, but we're doing it for a great cause. We've got Mr. Ken Porter from, again, the Mood Disorder Society of Canada. And you folks out there have probably seen a few of our little tidbits, our promotions that we've been putting out over the last little while, because folks, we've partnered with these guys. We are in a situation where we are working with the Be Daring Association and the 5 for Thrive Run to raise some money for this fantastic group. Are you pointing? You're pointing at things.
Up in the corner. Up in the corner.
Yes.
Scan the code.
Mr. Ken Porter, again, thank you, sir, for joining us. Ken, can you tell us a little bit about you, yourself, and most importantly, Mood Disorder Society of Canada?
Sure. Thanks for having me again, Pat and James. I really appreciate the chance to tell everybody a little bit about Mood Disorders Society of Canada and a little bit about myself as well. So myself, I ever since I was young, I can remember trying to understand why people do the things they do. It's always been an interest to me ever since as long as I can remember. And so, in my 20s, I decided to actually go back to school and take social work in order to kind of help people with that, and spent most of my career doing social work, helping people return to work, doing different things. Eventually, I found out that I had a knack for working with individuals with mental health disabilities and mental illness, and it never really occurred to me the reason why is because I had my own issues. I've been battling depression and anxiety since I was a teenager. It's something that I live with every day, but as a professional, that wasn't something you were ever supposed to talk about. So when I finally did learn to open up and talk about it, I found a great deal of strength in sharing your story and talking to others about your experience. And so it's begun to shape everything that I do, all the programs that I'm involved with, everything. Even Mood Disorder Society itself is a lived experience organization or a peer organization, which means basically all of the board and the staff, we all have our own lived experience with mental illness, and we're quite proud to share that experience as well. So that's a little bit about me. I don't know if you had any specific questions.
I think that's amazing. Yeah. So you're absolutely right. There was this theory because I'm an older man, way older than you. There was this theory that if you were in the field, you should not share your story. You should not lend to people that you have any problems. You should not tell them about how you struggle or anything like that. You should be stoic, and because they're coming to you for stoic support. And now it's kind of rolled over into, no, it's better you share your story because people want to come to the people that have learned experience, that have life experience. Is that what you're finding now that you're deeper into your practice? Well, not practice, but, your field.
Yeah, I think, I mean, in the 90s and the early 2000s, the pretty traditional kind of approach to social work was kind of the standard practice. And in certain sectors today, it's still kind of the standard. You don't talk about your issues. In the mid 2000s, I started working with a group on peer support and began to understand the impact that peer support can have in individuals' recovery. And it was all about sharing your story and feeling like you're connected with the person you're talking to based on the shared experience. And there's nothing more helpful than talking to somebody who's been through the same thing that you've been through. And it really builds a good relationship and allows somebody to open up and share things that they wouldn't necessarily have shared otherwise. So, I really promote the idea of peer support. We do peer support. Inside of our organization, we have a peer support training group. We have an online peer support forum that we use, and so that whole concept of sharing your story is really changed. Throughout the years, there's been different social media campaigns and things like that, talking about speaking up and sharing your story, and it's true that is a very, very important part I'd encourage everyone to share their story, simply because it makes you feel connected to something that is bigger than you. And oftentimes when you have a mental illness, depression in particular, it makes you feel isolated. It makes you feel like you're the only one going through it. And I call it a big liar, because it does. It makes you think things that aren't true. And so having that ability to talk to people and share your story is really, really impactful for you in your own recovery, but also for them to hear that other people are going through what they're going through.
Well, Ken, you brought something up there that I kind of want to touch on very briefly, is that here in Canada, we have certain large corporations that are putting lots of branding and media behind some of the mental health. I'm going to say promotion, probably not the best terminology to say, but, trying to remove that stigma, getting people to talk, right? We're not sponsored by anybody. We don't need to throw any names around, but there's some major brands that have gotten behind this over the last little while, where there's a lot of money through donations that are going into that. Now, where does that money go? Does anyone, like through Mood Society of Canada, who's receiving those funds?
Well, I can't speak for any particular campaign other than the ones that we're involved with. But our campaigns have a couple different levels. For example, we have our own program called The Elephant in the Room, and that's an awareness and an anti-stigma campaign that we bring to workplaces and colleges, universities, and things like that, to encourage safe places to talk about your mental illness. And that it's not really a big money maker per se. It's really about just sharing the message, that the importance of fighting stigma. Our other campaign, Defeat Depression, for example, that's a campaign that directly supports mental health resources across Canada, right? So whether that's working with one particular agency or helping to develop resources that work all across Canada. So, every campaign is different, but I can tell you that the money we raise goes back into the community and back into helping the people that we serve.
So we've talked a couple of times, and the profiteers out there will see some of the videos that we put out, some nice shorts that you had a little fun with us. But during that time, you mentioned that you guys are working on changing policies. Can you talk a little bit about that? Address what are you changing policy-wise in Canada, or trying to?
Well, there's a few things that are really problematic, and I'll touch on two of the main things that we're working on right now. One of them, it has to do with community mental health organizations, and in every community throughout Canada, there is those little small mental health organizations that provide support to individuals that are looking for help. And oftentimes those guys are underfunded, underrecognized, and undersupported. You'll often see them come up because of a community need, and then because they don't receive the funding or can't find funding, they end up disappearing. And it's a sad fact. And on the other hand, you've got the federal government, who's trying to solve a mental health crisis across Canada, and is sharing money with the provinces, but it's hard for them to get into the communities because that's a provincial jurisdiction. Right. So, finding a way to support those community mental health organizations is something that we want to work towards. Want to find a way for us to support those guys. One of the ways that we're doing that is actually creating a network of community mental health organizations called the CCMHN. And that group is dedicated to advocate and to share resources and best practices with these community mental health organizations across Canada. And so that's definitely one of the things we're involved with, and finding ways to help the government to support these organizations that are an integral part of the healthcare system. And they're just kind of undervalued for the most part. And the other thing that I think we do a lot of right now is really fighting for access to different types of treatments. And that treatment can be anything from medications to psychotherapy to different types of medication. Let's talk about medications, for example. There is individual companies come up with a new type of antidepressants. I'll use, say, for example, and it gets approved by Health Canada. There's a whole process between when it gets approved by Health Canada and when it's available to most of the individuals that are on disability plans, right? And that process can take up to 2.5 years to complete. And a majority of the mental illness medications that are brought through that process, it takes a very long time, and oftentimes they do not get approved for distribution. So that means that if you're on the disability pension, living in in Winnipeg, and you're trying to get a hold of an antidepressant because the ones you've been using are not working anymore. There's ones on the market you know that they're there, but you don't have access to them because the private or the public system has not recognized that or have approved it for use. So that remains to be a big issue. Along the same line of that, like I said, treatment is a big thing. Talk therapy and other types of psychotherapy have something that has never really been covered by the Canada Health Act. And so we support all kinds of different illnesses, but when it comes to mental illness, it's treated as something separate. It's seen as something that's not quite an illness, but in reality it is. Anybody who's experienced it knows that it's an illness, and it needs to be recognized as that. We need to be able to offer the same type of supports and treatments that are available to anybody who is suffering from any other condition. So yeah, that's a little bit about what we've been doing in Ottawa, but there's a lot of work to do there for sure.
Yeah, it definitely is a problem for people who are lower income to be able to, one, access the meds, because sometimes the designer meds, we'll call them, aren't available at all to them. And also, I go to therapy, but my therapy is really expensive. It's about $160 Canadian for an hour. Which I don't know how someone who's on low income or is on welfare could afford such a thing. And I don't think that it's part of a benefit plan that the government is. Maybe it is, but then it's probably a waiting list of some kind, because it always is when the government is involved. Whereas I can walk in and I went through a couple of counselors and found the one that was right for me. And that's what you have to do for mental health. You can't just pick a doctor. And the same doctor is not equally good for mental health as it is for like a broken arm. All the doctors can fix your broken arm, but you need a specific doctor. Some women can't deal with having a male, for example. Some men struggle with dealing with a woman. That's just a basic example of what it is. Are you finding that the government is listening and moving forward in those areas, or are you getting some pushback?
No, well, the government has its, the realities of today's world are very evident in the things that we deal with. Unfortunately, it's hard sometimes to connect all the things that are happening out there with what's happening inside. And our mental illness, our mental health has been significantly impacted over the last few years with the pandemic. And I think we're really still just beginning to understand how that has changed us. And so there's a lot of, the economic downturn, the wars around the world. There's all these issues that are going on. And so I can't really yell and scream at the government saying, listen, hey, you need to listen to me. They got a lot of things going on. But that doesn't stop me from going there. Say, listen, all those things that are going on are just making the thing that I'm talking about worse. It's making it worse. People watching the news every night. If you have anxiety, you're going to be peaked through the roof. The environment. There's so many things going on in the world right now that it can be completely overwhelming. And so, yeah, the government, I think, would say that they are doing their best to support individuals that are impacted by mental health issues. And they have been doing well working with the provinces to increase transfer payments to support mental health. But like I said, there's often that gap between the provinces and those individual communities that are frontline. And those folks are somehow falling between the cracks a little bit. And so that's what we're working on, saying, hey, listen, we've got to meet this, right now, if you are in a mental health crisis, what do you do? Most people have no idea. So they'll go to an emergency room, right? Is that the only option? So what happens if you are in a mental health crisis and you're sent to the emergency room? They take a look at you and say, well, you're not bleeding and you're not having a heart attack, so we'll get to you. And that's the worst thing you need when you're experiencing distress. And so there's got to be another way to help people rather than just going to the emergency room. And community mental health organizations are there to provide support, through all different means. Sometimes it's just a coffee, a place where you can stop in and talk to people who know what you're going through. Sometimes it's helping you find a job. Sometimes it's recreational programs. It could be all kinds of different things you can do to help. And these organizations are doing that. But like I said, they're not getting the support they need.
Yeah. Well, it certainly sounds like you're building a fantastic community with what you folks with the Mood Disorder Society of Canada are building. And, this is something that James and I have been passionate around supporting for a long time. And the folks with Five to Thrive and the Be Daring Foundation out of the States have put a really interesting, path to have some fun, also to promote what we're doing. So, Ken, I want to thank you so much, pal, for joining us tonight. What you folks do are truly, you guys are touching people and saving people's lives out there. That is such an invaluable resource in Canada, and one that all too often, you hear about one or two of the players, the big names that are out there, but knowing that you guys are there pushing that rock up the hill, I think it's fantastic. So from me, folks, get in touch with Mr. Ken Porter as well. That little QR code in the top corner, if you pull out your phone right now and you scan that, that's going to take us to our site, and that will be able to get you signed up, ready for our little run. James, my little marathon runner down here in the bottom, he'll be out there with his flat feet running along the highway here for his 5K on November 4th. And I hope that all of you join. Such an amazing cause. And from me, folks, we'll see you again. Let's make some money together. James.
Yeah, November 4th, we're going to live stream that man up there to the left of Ken running 5K beside me. I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to live stream the whole 5K. Normally that would take me just under a half hour, 20 something. But it may take us an hour. So, get some popcorn. But if you can join us, that'd be amazing. Hop up on that link up there, scan that QR code. Ken, the more I deep dive into the Mood Disorder Society of Canada, the more I just love it. And I think it's amazing. The fact that you have groups that people can access, the fact that you're helping change the way we see mental health, not only in deed, but also in trying to convince the Canadian government to find a better way to deal with it, especially that emergency stuff, because really it's the emergency stuff that we're really failing, because those are the points of impact when someone's going to make a change. The points of impact when someone's hit their lowest are the times that they go and seek out the emerge. And that's the time that you can go to them, hey man, there's a different way. But if no one catches them and there's no one to point out a different way, they slip through the cracks and they cycle again, and it just gets lower and lower. And I think what you're doing is beautiful. Underneath, I have that banner going by. That is the website for the Mood Disorder Society of Canada. I would imagine, Ken, there's some links on there that you can either kind of find some groups to get along with, but also maybe donate, get involved maybe in some of the societies around. I love everything you're doing. Profiteers out there, we got so much going on. There's more coming up. We're going to keep on trying to move this actual ball of mental health up that field, along with the Mood Disorder Society of Canada, Be Daring, and of course, Chris from Walk and Chaw. There's going to be some exciting stuff coming up. And I love you all, Profiteers. I want you all to stay safe. And the most important thing, if you're feeling lonely, if you're feeling sad, if you're feeling depressed, if you're feeling that the world and everything's against you and those voices in your head are telling you you're no good, seek out someone. Go talk to them. Because, those voices are going to tell you not to. But I'm telling you right now, if you go talk to someone, it just gets better. And it spins that ball forward. So get out there, talk to people. I love you all. Let's heal our minds, bodies, and souls together. Ken, you get the last whatever you want to tell us your words of wisdom, and let us know, what people can do on your website when they get there.
Yeah, thanks so much, Pat and James. You know, it's amazing. First of all, I want to point out the fact that your event, the running and the connection between mental health and physical health is extremely well connected. So one of the best things you can do for your mental health is actually engage in physical activity. It's not a cure. I'm just saying that that's one of the things you can do to maintain that wellness. If you go to mdsc.ca, the website that's scrolling along the bottom, you'll see a list of different programs and resources that are available on both sides of the screen, including our Defeat Depression campaign, our different resource books that you can download, our online forum where you can have anonymous conversations with other people who've been through the similar situations that you have. There's, if you're a veteran, we have programs for veteran support as well. So if you're looking for support, by all means, come on over to our website.
I love it. That's awesome. Thanks again, Mr. Ken Porter from the Mood Disorder Society. Let's make some money together, folks.
Thanks, guys.